After I stopped making a scene about everything, my family completely fell apart. At the checkout counter, I pointed to the 2 extra bottles of shampoo on the receipt. "Excuse me, we didn't get these 2 bottles of shampoo." The cashier frowned. "They're already scanned in. It's a hassle to refund them. You could just go grab 2 more bottles." "But this was your mistake," I said, my voice unintentionally getting louder. The people in line behind us started to get restless, some of them clicking their tongues in annoyance. My mom pulled on my arm. "Stop making a scene." I insisted on the refund. In the middle of the argument, a shelf tipped over and crushed me. As I lay dying, I heard my parents telling the people around them, "She's just being difficult. We don't care about a little money." In the end, they took the supermarket's compensation money, trading my life for $80,000. They had me cremated in a hurry. During the cremation, they told people, "This is so undignified. She brought this on herself by being so fussy about every little thing." When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the checkout counter. My mom habitually handed me the receipt to check. This time, I decided to be the bigger person. I looked at the receipt my mom was holding out, but I didn't take it. "You can check it, Mom," I said with a smile, pushing the shopping cart forward a bit. Her hand visibly froze, her fingertips trembling as she held the flimsy paper. Before, I was always the one to check the bill first, the one to spot any problems. "Vera, just take a look," my mom whispered, her eyes darting to the line of people behind us. "The cashiers are professionals," I said calmly. "Besides, it's not worth making a fuss over a few dollars." My mom's expression instantly became complicated. She had clearly seen the 2 bottles of shampoo on the bill that we hadn't bought, just like last time. But this time, no one was going to speak up for her. As we paid, I noticed her knuckles were white from gripping her phone so tightly. On the way home, she finally couldn't hold it in anymore. "Vera, we overpaid by $89. So what?" I replied nonchalantly. "Think of it as treating the cashier to a coffee." That night, through the thin walls, I could hear my parents arguing in hushed tones. "It's your fault for not checking. Aren't you usually the one who's so good with numbers?" It ended with my dad cursing. "It's like we just fed it to the dogs." In the darkness, I smiled silently. This was only the beginning. My family called me the nitpicker. When we were settling the bill at a restaurant, the server accidentally charged us for an 88 steamed sea bass we never ordered. After carefully checking the bill, I politely pointed out the mistake. "Excuse me, we didn't order this dish." I flipped the menu to the corresponding page. My parents and my sister all instinctively looked down at their phones, acting as if they had nothing to do with it. Only after the server apologized and gave us the cash back did my dad suddenly look up and say with a frown, "Vera, making such a big deal over a small amount of money is really undignified." When I went to the farmer's market with my mom on the weekend, a fruit vendor was yelling, "Fresh lychees, 10 a pound." My mom picked up a bag and looked at me hesitantly, and I immediately knew what she wanted. "Sir," I said, pointing to another customer's bag, "you sold it to that lady for 10 for 2 pounds. After some back and forth, we got them for 10 for 2 pounds. But as my mom took the lychees, she sighed, "Vera, it's not easy for them to run a business. Why do you have to haggle so much?" The most ridiculous time was when I went shopping for clothes with my sister. A dress was clearly marked at $199, but the register rang it up as $219. Just as I was about to speak up, my sister pinched my arm hard. "It's okay," she said to the cashier with a sweet smile. "I probably just misread the price." She paid so fast you would have thought she was grabbing a cash prize. The moment we stepped out of the store, her face changed. "Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to get on good terms with this store?" She immediately sent a voice note to her group chat. My sister was embarrassing me again, haggling over a dress. It's so annoying. Watching the ha 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 replies pop up on her screen, I suddenly understood. In this family, my nitpicking was just the perfect foil for them to maintain their generous personas. This time I decided to be the bigger person. My sister, Chloe, had a hair clip with rhinestones that she'd begged my mom to buy for her birthday. Her deskmate, Leah, deliberately stepped on it and broke it. Chloe came home telling me about it, crying her eyes out. "Sis, Leah did it on purpose," she sobbed, grabbing my wrist so hard her nails dug into my skin. Go tell the teacher, you're the best at making a case. In my past life, I spent my entire lunch break in the teacher's office, demanding an apology and a replacement clip for my sister. In the office, Leah's mom sneered at me. So sharp at such a young age. You certainly won't be taken advantage of when you grow up. My homeroom teacher sighed beside me. There's no need to make things so tense between classmates. But the very next day, I saw my sister putting the new hair clip in Leah's hair, smiling. My sister just loves to make a fuss. I was over it a long time ago. Leah touched the rhinestones on the clip. A petty person like your sister is just terrifying. Laughter rippled through the classroom. Now my sister stood before me, her eyes red, placing the broken rhinestone clip on the table. Sis Leah was so horrible. I kept my eyes on the variety show playing on the TV, ignoring her. Sis. She shoved my knee. Are you even listening? I hit the pause button. I'm listening. And she opened her mouth, like a fish out of water. Leah stepped on it on purpose. She even said, Chloe's voice caught, waiting for me to jump in like I always did. I gently placed the clip back on the coffee table. Want some juice? I just made it. Chloe looked stunned, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. She suddenly grabbed my wrist again, her nails digging into the same spot. Can't you just be like you were before? Like I was before? I pulled my hand back with a smile. The crescent-shaped nail marks on my wrist were slightly red. I have no desire to be the family nitpicker. Chloe's pupils contracted sharply. On the TV, the studio audience erupted in laughter, drowning out her ragged breathing. My mom walked in carrying grocery bags. What's all this about? Mom. Chloe immediately turned to her. My hair clip. Oh, for goodness sake, my mom said, glancing at the clip on the table and understanding. Out with the old, in with the new. She patted Chloe's shoulder. Don't be a penny pincher like your sister. I took a sip of my orange juice. It was sweet with a hint of bitterness. Besides me, no one else in this family would stand up for her. And my mom certainly wasn't going to buy her a new one. Chloe stood frozen, her gaze shifting between me and my mom. Finally, she snatched the broken clip and ran upstairs, her footsteps pounding on the stairs. The HWA bill had been sitting on the dining table for a week. My parents were waiting for me to notice that we had been overcharged. Finally, tonight, they couldn't stand it anymore. Vera, take a look at this, my mom said, pushing the bill toward me. This month's HOA fee doesn't seem right. I picked up a piece of bok choy with my chopsticks. Maybe they raised the rates. My dad cleared his throat. I heard the Wongs next door had the same problem last month. Oh really? I said, looking down at my soup. Did Mr. Wong go ask the property management office about it? Silence fell over the table. The next morning, I heard them arguing in hushed tones by the front door. What's the big deal with you just going to ask? My mom said, shoving the bill into my dad's hand. Just say you're inquiring. My dad snatched his hand back as if he'd been burned. How can I ask? I'm a grown man. I can't be seen haggling over $300. So we're just supposed to overpay by $300? My mom's voice shot up, then quickly dropped again. Vera always used to handle this. I don't know what's gotten into her lately. Their conversation stopped abruptly. As I came down the stairs, my dad was hastily stuffing the bill back into a drawer. Morning, I said with a smile, tying my scarf. It looks like it might rain today, don't forget your umbrellas. For a whole week, that bill became a ghost in our house. It appeared on the fridge door, on the shoe cabinet by the entrance, and my mom even accidentally slipped it into my work folder. Each time, I put it right back on the dining table without a word. The argument finally erupted on Saturday morning. Can't you just be the bigger person for once? My dad yelled before slamming the door on his way out. Making a fuss over $300 all day. My mom slammed a rag into the sink. If we don't get that money back, you can forget about buying that new fishing rod. In my past life, I argued with the billing records at the management office for 2 hours and finally got the $300 back. That night, I heard my dad on the balcony, on the phone. Hey Mike, count me in for fishing tomorrow. I just used the money my daughter got back to buy a new rod. I heard laughter from the other end. Your fussy daughter was at it again? Yeah, I didn't really care about the money, but my daughter has to make a big deal out of everything. my dad replied, his tone full of disdain. In the evening, my dad came home looking dejected. Mike's son-in-law got his overcharge back from the HOA, he said, tossing his keys on the shoe cabinet. Now he's bragging to everyone about the new fishing rod he bought. The knife in my mom's hand came down hard on the cutting board. I let out a cold laugh. Mom, Dad, our family's tradition is to be generous. You wouldn't want to lose your dignity. Late that night, I heard the sound of a calculator from the master bedroom. My mom was whispering, including this month, they've overcharged us by $460. My dad grunted in response, and his snoring suddenly grew louder. This time, when the news broke that the piano school had gone bankrupt and run off with the tuition money, I was in the living room peeling an apple. The tip of the knife broke the skin, and a few drops of juice splattered out. My mom ran into the living room holding her phone. Vera, your sister's piano lessons, I saw, I said, turning the apple in my hand, the peel hanging down in a long strip. The parents' group chat is exploding. In my past life, I immediately contacted over 30 other parents to form a group to demand our rights. We protested outside the school for 3 days, and eventually got 70% of our tuition back. The night we got the refund, my dad was counting the cash, wetting his thumb with his tongue. You've caused a city-wide scandal. How is your sister supposed to make it in the music world now? My sister pouted, crumpled up the refund slip, and threw it in the trash. All my classmates are laughing at me for having a shrew of a sister. Cease. Chloe ran down the stairs barefoot. Lucy said her mom already got the refund. Good for her, I said, taking a bite of the apple. The juice dripped onto my pajama pants. My mom wrung the corner of her apron. Vera, maybe you could go ask? Mom, didn't you always tell me not to make a fuss over every little thing? I said, wiping my hands. This is different. This is tens of thousands of dollars. I shook my head. Mom, you've changed. You're getting so nitpicky. My dad let out a heavy sigh. I'll go ask. He came back without even taking off his suit jacket, his tie askew. They said it's still being processed. How did you ask? My mom asked, rushing up to him. My dad's eyes darted away. I just asked when it would be resolved. I scrolled through my phone, watching messages pop up in the parents' group chat. Success! 70% refund has been received. Thank you to all the parents for your persistence over the last 3 days. In my past life, that money allowed my sister to afford her final masterclass. When she performed at her college audition in a white dress, the judges nodded in approval. When the results were posted, the word accepted was printed in gold next to her name. This time, the piano teacher sent a message. Chloe's mom, about the masterclass fee. My mom looked at her bank account balance and replied, Sorry, teacher, we'll have to pass for now. On the day of the audition, my sister's fingers froze in the middle of the third measure, like frozen butterflies on the black and white keys. On her results sheet, the 1.5-point gap was like a chasm she could never cross. She was rejected. My dad folded the notification letter twice and stuffed it into the bottom of a drawer. Now, the grand piano is just the most expensive piece of furniture in the living room. My dad bought a new car. The day he drove it home, you could hear him honking the horn all over the neighborhood. I stood on the balcony, watching the subtle color difference in the paint that only appeared at a certain angle. It seemed that, just like last time, the dealership had passed off a refurbished car as a new one to my dad. In my previous life, when I pointed out the problem, my dad threw the car keys on the coffee table. What bad luck. Do you have to jinx everything? Later, I sat at the dealership for a whole day with the inspection report, and finally got him a new car. That night, he sent a voice message to his car enthusiast group. My daughter just loves to make a fuss. A little color difference doesn't even affect how it drives. Dad, this car is beautiful, I said this time, admiringly touching the door handle. He grinned from ear to ear, and polished the steering wheel until it shone. That weekend, my dad took us for a drive in the country in his new car. On the highway, the dashboard suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree. Sweat beaded on my dad's forehead, but he tried to act casual. It's just a small issue. New cars need a break-in period, it's normal. When the engine gave its last dying groan, our whole family was stranded on a desolate county road. The tow truck driver shook his head after inspecting it. The frame on this thing has been welded. You guys got totally ripped off. Vera, my dad said suddenly in a low voice, in a situation like this, can we what? I asked, blinking my innocent eyes. My dad's face turned beet red. After a long pause, he said awkwardly, Vera, what I mean is, could you go talk to the dealership? My mom and sister stared at their phones, saying nothing. Say what, Dad? I continued to play dumb. You know, about maybe getting a new car. This one is going to cost a fortune to fix, my dad said, looking troubled. Dad, are you asking me to go argue with the dealership? I mimicked his tone from years ago. Dad, making a scene over such a small thing is so embarrassing. We should be the bigger people. After a month in the repair shop, the fully loaded used car was finally towed back. My dad stood in front of the garage, his face looking worse than the car's paint job. Hey Jiang, you got your car fixed? Our neighbor, Mr. Wang, asked, poking his head in. I heard the transmission alone cost you thousands, right? My dad's mouth twitched. Pocket change. At dinner, my mom slammed the bowls and chopsticks down. $3,800 in repairs. That's enough to buy a used minivan. What do you know? My dad's chopstick stabbed into his rice. This is a top-of-the-line model. A top-of-the-line refurbished model, maybe, my sister muttered, scraping her spoon against her bowl. My dad shot her a death glare, and she immediately shrank back. Didn't the guys in your car group offer any advice? I asked, picking up a stalk of greens. My dad's Adam's apple bobbed. I knew his brothers in the car group were now forwarding his story as a joke. The guy who was bragging about his great deal last month was now the group's cautionary tale. In my last life, as I stayed up all night preparing materials to fight the dealership, he was in that group sending voice messages. My daughter just loves to overcomplicate things. A car is a car, as long as it drives. Vera, my mom suddenly put down her chopsticks. I remember you know someone who does used car inspections. Oh, you mean Manager Davis, I said, blowing on my soup. Didn't Dad say we shouldn't associate with people who are so nitpicky? I deleted his contact a long time ago. My dad's ears turned as red as taillights. The next morning, I was woken up by a fierce argument. I don't care. My sister screamed. You promised you'd take me to the music festival this week. There's no money. My dad waved his hand dismissively. It all went to fixing the car. Your father would rather suffer than lose face. My mom's scolding was mixed with the clatter of dishes. Insisting on buying this piece of junk to show off. Enough. My dad roared. Every single one of you. When I pushed my door open, all three of them turned to me at once. 6 eyes stared at me, a look I knew all too well. They thought the nitpicker who always cleaned up their messes was about to step in. Morning, I said with a smile, tying my scarf. What a beautiful day. I was about to leave when my dad suddenly blocked my path. Vera, this car, is there really nothing we can do? I tilted my head and thought for a moment. Sure there is. We could do what the Lees did and protest with banners in front of the dealership. Seeing the hope in his face, I added, but a generous person like you would never do something like that, would you, Dad? My mom's hand clenched her apron. You used to. Mom, I interrupted her gently. Didn't you always say that girls should be gentle and forgiving? My sister suddenly threw her backpack on the floor. You've changed. You could clearly. Could what? I looked at her calmly. I'm just doing what you all told me to do. Be a generous person who doesn't make a fuss. Is that wrong? All three of their faces froze. They finally realized that the fool who always charged into battle for them would not be tricked again. The real karma was yet to come. 7 days after my grandfather's funeral, a man in a worn-out suit rang our doorbell. He had a mole under his eye, identical to my grandfather's, and he was holding a yellowed paternity test report. According to the law, I have the right to inherit this house. The old man never fulfilled his parental duties while he was alive, so this house should go to me. He sat in our living room, speaking each word carefully, then nervously pushed up his glasses. In my past life, I spent 3 sleepless nights studying inheritance law and fought tooth and nail to keep the house. That day, my dad patted my shoulder and said, "A daughter is still the most useful." But then he turned to my sister and said, "Don't be like your sister. If a girl is that aggressive, who would ever marry her? Please come in." This time, I smiled and stepped aside. Dad, we have a guest. My dad came out of his study and listened to the man's story. Nonsense. Veins popped on his forehead. How could Dad possibly? The paternity test was done in 2013. The man said, calmly unfolding the document. The crisp sound of the paper made my mom tremble. I gently placed my hand on her veiny one. Mom, blood is thicker than water. We have to be more accepting. This is what my mom had said to me in my past life after I had won the fight for the house. My sister hid on the staircase landing, her nails digging deep into the banister. In my past life, she had called me cold-blooded through red-rimmed eyes, saying how pitiful our illegitimate uncle was, and that I was stripping him of his only hope. Now her lips moved, but no sound came out. We can either go through the legal process, the man said, looking up at the crystal chandelier, or you can move out. My dad suddenly grabbed my arm. Vera, didn't you study law? I did, I said, opening a law book. And it's true that children born out of wedlock have equal inheritance rights. My finger stopped on the page I had once dog-eared. But don't worry, Dad, a lawsuit would take at least 2 years. Just as my dad breathed a sigh of relief, the man smiled. What a coincidence. I have a friend who's a lawyer. He pulled out his phone. He says he can speed up the process. I remained silent, watching the three of them scurrying around like ants on a hot pan. Vera. My mom's nails dug into my flesh. Say something. 3 pairs of eyes burned into me, just as they had countless times before, waiting for me to charge into the fray. If I won, they'd say, why make such a fuss? If I lost, they'd say, it's all your fault for being so difficult. My sister rushed over and tugged on my shirt. Sis, you live in this house too. And what about you all? I tilted my head. Aren't you going to live here with me? My dad straightened his collar. As a man, My mom looked down, fidgeting with her apron. I don't understand any of this. My sister twisted the hem of her dress. Mom and Dad said we have to be generous. Then let's just give it to our uncle, I said, smiling at the man. He looks like he really needs this house. The day our illegitimate uncle came to take possession of the house, he wore a look of utter disbelief. His hand trembled as he touched the leather sofa. He probably never imagined the Jiang family would be so generous. As the movers carried out the TV stand, my dad suddenly dropped to his knees in the middle of the empty living room. This is a house in a top school district. His tears hit the hardwood floor. I rolled my suitcase past him, the wheels going over his shadow. Didn't Chloe say a good attitude is more important than a good school? My mom suddenly lunged at our uncle. You animal. You bastard. Give me back my house. Her nails left 3 long scratches on his suit. Mom, I said, grabbing her flailing arm, making such a fuss is so undignified. My sister cowered in a corner, her fingers unconsciously pressing keys that weren't there. Our uncle had graciously allowed her to take the piano, but now the behemoth had to be stored in a moving company's warehouse. The old apartment we were renting was too small for it. As the last piece of furniture was moved out, my dad grabbed my wrist. Are you satisfied now? He rasped. Watching this family fall apart. I slowly pried his fingers off, mimicking the benevolent expression he wore when he said those words to me years ago. Dad, aren't you the one who taught me that those who take a loss are the most blessed? Later, after I graduated from college, I moved out and rented my own place. I work at a law firm, specializing in consumer rights cases. My nitpicking has won many clients the compensation they deserved. Because of my outstanding performance, I quickly became a partner at the firm. And my family, who once despised me for being so fussy, have all become the very people they used to hate. My dad's magnifying glass has become the nightmare of the community's HOA. He pores over the utility bills every day, ready to slam his fist on the table over a 50-cent discrepancy in the shared electricity fee. Last week, a security guard secretly told me he saw my dad reading the water meter with a flashlight in the middle of the night, refusing to be overcharged by a single penny. My mom, who always had to lose is to gain on her lips, is now the most dreaded customer at the farmer's market. She'll argue for half an hour over a single wilted vegetable, shouting business is about honesty for the whole street to hear. Someone saw her at the supermarket entrance, alternately crying and laughing at a receipt that had overcharged her by 20 cents, muttering, if only Vera were here. My sister, once known for her generosity, was recently fired from her job at a boba tea shop for arguing about 5 minutes of overtime pay. Her best friends have all blocked her because she insists on splitting the bill for their get-togethers down to every last slice of vegetable. And her piano, because the apartment she rents is too small, was eventually sold to a scrapyard for $300. Sunlight streams through the blinds, casting neat bars of light across my office desk. On the newest commendation banner I've received, the 4 words "fighting for the people's rights," embroidered in gold thread, are shining brightly. The end.